Consulting Network is a very close solutions partner with us, and they are a strategic partner. They have integrated our secure tokenization solution with many of their e-commerce platforms, including the WebAR product you'll see here today. And several of Paymetric's customers are leveraging this solution, and you'll also see a few examples of that. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Gerald.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining today in our presentation about the WebAR solution. Here, quick agenda for the next 45 minutes. We'll do a quick overview about Paymetric, about CNBS, about our WebAR solution, the pain points we address, and then we'll show client examples. How does the system work and how tightly it's integrated with Paymetric's data intercept so that everything is PCI compliant, and of course highly integrated into SAP's ECC components. I hand it over to Eric Bushman, who will do the Paymetric overview. Eric?
Thank you, Gerald. So as many of you may know, Paymetric is a provider of integrated and secure payment processing services within the SAP and general ERP space. We're actually the leading provider within the SAP space and have roughly about 450 enterprise customers using our solutions today. We were founded in 1998 and have just around 75 employees, and we're still a privately held company backed by Austin Ventures and Palomar, who are our venture capital partners. So Paymetric strives to help our customers streamline the order-to-cash process, reduce the scope and burden of achieving PCI compliance, and improve the return on their electronic payment acceptance. You'll see that in action today as Gerald walks through how the e-commerce solutions from CNBS are leveraging not only the tokenization functionality from Paymetric for security, but also the integrated payment processing services to help you connect your systems, be it a e-commerce system or a back-end ERP system, with your banking partners. Next slide, please. And just a little background on Paymetric. Very proud for the recognition that our services and solutions have received. We have been a recipient of the TAG Top 40 Company Award in Georgia for the last 3 years running. One of the fastest growing and most recognized technology companies within the state of Georgia, where our headquarters are located. And also other awards that you can see here listed from InfoSecurity, as well as Pinnacle Awards from SAP. Specifically, our 2009 Pinnacle Award was presented to us by SAP for development of the tokenization solution that we deploy to our SAP customers and that we'll talk about as well today. Next slide, please. And we also wanted to give you a brief look at some of our customers. You'll notice that there's not really a specific industry or vertical that leverages Paymetric solutions. It's basically any merchant who is accepting credit card payments from their customers. You'll see customers representing consumer products, wholesale distribution, life sciences, pharmaceutical, you name it. If you have the need to accept electronic payments securely from your customers, then Paymetric is a company that can provide you a solution to assist you in doing so. Next slide, please.
Well, I take this slide. Eric, thanks for your part here. CNBS provides 2 SAP ECC add-ons for e-commerce, ECRM, and mobility. And the uniqueness about those solutions is that they are all running out of your ECC components, directly connecting your ECC to the web without any interfaces, without any data synchronization. We connect to your ECC and enable your ECC data to the web for e-commerce, CRM, and mobility. And what we're very proud of is today to be able to present the WebAR solution that was built together with our solution partner Paymetric, and is one of the modules of our e-commerce product. And as you can see with our partners and reference customers in the US, there is big names that use and utilize Paymetric payment and credit card processing services via our e-commerce solution already today. What we want to talk real quick about is what's a web AR solution. What are we talking today about? So first, the customer logs on to a website via either a web user ID, or we can do single sign-on integration as well. Again, everything runs out of your ECC components. The customer selects then make payment, and a list of OpenAR documents that get pulled out directly off your FI environment, of your accounts receivable environment, without any synchronization to a third-party environment, is presented. The customer can then select items to pay, can select partial payments, put in reading codes, and process then the payment. And of course, the payment processing is connected to what you build today. It connects automatically to Paymetric's PCI-compliant payment options, either credit card or ACH or other payment options. And of course, we integrate to Paymetric's data Intercept, which allows us to do a tokenization from the web client and enable complete PCI compliance without the raw credit card ever touching your internal systems and your SAP systems. We can enable as well statements, can do invoice reprinting and invoice and statement reprinting, and of course, because our solutions are true HTML and we use the jQuery platform for that, our solutions are mobile compatible and run on iOS and Android devices. So iPad, iPhones, Blackberries are supported as well. What are the pain points we address with our solutions? Let's say you have a collection agent that has to call out to your customer base to get open accounts receivables paid. You're facing around $60,000 a year per person, and you are limited on that person's capability to make calls. So the other thing is, if the collection agent can't collect the money from your customers, then you go to collection agencies, which typically charge you 25 to 40% of collection amounts. Those are your typical costs when you talk with customers about getting your OpenARs paid. Mailing statements, mailing invoices in today's world, it's pretty slow and inefficient and very expensive. And the biggest thing on this slide is probably that the customer expects in today's world a 24/7 self-service option. So today everything is instant and on the spot. So a customer expects today to be able to see their open balance with you guys, expects to be able to go online, look at their last statements, and then do as a self-service, clear their open balance by paying via credit card or ACH. As mentioned before, everything we talk today is real-time integration with SAP. What does that mean for you? Everything you build around the Paymetric solution, the processes around accepting credit cards, the process about the settlement in the finance area, your payment cards, all that setup in your SAP that you invested money already can be leveraged and will be leveraged via our solution. So there is no rebuild necessary. We just connect to Paymetric's setup and process the payment via a different channel. So it's not a person in your FI department that enters and accepts a credit card payment for your accounts receivable list, but the customer puts in the information and processes it themselves. So there is no change in your processes. That's why we can launch the WebAR module pretty quickly on your system. And of course, big thing, you're staying PCI compliant. You are PCI compliant today with Paymetric solution, so you will be PCI compliant tomorrow because we don't do anything separate. We don't call different services. We call what you have today via Paymetric already. We're very proud, and we'll just talk about two of our bigger customers here, reference customers for the WebAR. We're very proud about Animal Health International, who works with us on building the solution with Paymetric as a customer project. So they choose today on their online platform that their customers, they can purchase products on the B2B platform, but they can as well go in, select OpenAR items, and then either do credit card payment or automatic check. So with automatic checks, you can add a new checking and savings account and those things, and then you can just process that as well and get taken off your bank account immediately. The other customer we're very proud about is Vera Bradley. They use credit card processing only at this time. I heard today that ACH will follow pretty soon. But in their way, they have the similar integration in their SAP portal where their retailers reorder their products, and then at month's end they can go in and say, okay, I want to clear my open invoices, pay by credit card. This picture shows, for example, that a customer put their credit card on the customer account and stored it, and I can pay with my last used credit card. Again, everything in SAP, of course, is stored with a token, and there is no true credit card number there. Let's see one of those solutions in action, and I just switch over to Vera Bradley's portal environment. And to the order management, where their resellers log on and can order their product online, but we want to focus on the transaction processing, where the customers can actually choose and make payments. I can put in until when the payment should be due, click on search. So very simple and intuitive for the customer to navigate and to work with. I would pick my open invoice. I can go in and say download my invoice or statements, open it in a new window or new tab. Would see then directly out of SAP my PDF recreated. If I lost my invoice or need to recreate it, can print that again. Would then, if I did my analytical stuff, go in, select the invoice to pay, and I can do if I want a partial payment. Reason codes can be set up. So those are individual for each of the customers, where those reason codes tie directly into your FI solution. So I just say, okay, this was a damaged product, and I only want to pay $10. Of course, we have Excel downloads available so that your accounts receivable department can download the information and can clarify some stuff with the goods receipt department or with the sales or with the customer itself as well. Then I would hit continue, and I can either select credit cards that are already stored. Again, we only present the last 4 characters of the credit card, and on your customer master, that's all stored by a token, so no raw credit card number is stored. Or I could add a credit card as well if I want. Of course, other payment options, as we saw in the screenshot before, like ACH is possible, and other payment providers. And pretty simple, I click on Pay. What the system does now, it goes and uses your SAP setup and processes via SAP the authorization of that payment. And you would get a payment number, your authorization number, your reference code, and the payment confirmation. This can be printed if they want to have some information about that for the accounts receivable, for the records, to print that out, then that's possible as well. In the background, immediately an FI document was posted. And I'll just switch over to another screen here real quick. I'm not going to show a lot here. So real-time integration, it posts automatically a document in FI. And from there, your standard processes around settlement and clearing in your finance take over as you're used today with the Paymetric environment. So there is no process change, there's no organization change. You can see it as a different channel of receiving payments from the customers. And by that, you can reduce your DSO days in the accounts receivable department. So we talked a little about the data intercept, and Eric, I'll switch back to you and let you explain the data intercept technology, how that works, and why that will be the future for e-commerce.
Sure. Thank you, Gerald. So as the name implies, Data Intercept is a solution that Paymetric deploys on top of XI Secure. So it's an extension to XI Secure, and as the name implies, it's intended to intercept data and secure it or tokenize it before that data is exposed in your systems. So the Data Intercept for e-commerce solution is intended to be embedded within a website. So as you just saw the presentation from Gerald, if we were to embed that, which we have, into the screens where the method of payment and the details of that method of payment are entered, we could immediately have the customer's browser send that information to Paymetric, tokenize it, and return that token to the customer's browser, so that when the customer's browser then submits the details to the back-end e-commerce web servers, in this case sending back the information about which open items to pay and for how much, and then also the payment details, in that message the token would be passed in place of the raw card number. So the first exposure that any of your systems within your environment would have to those details would be with a token. The credit card number would have already been secured or intercepted and secured before it entered your environment. So the intent here is by securing that information prior to you being exposed to it, you're going to have a strong argument that those systems that now are being exposed to the token can be considered out of scope for a PCI audit because they are not being exposed to the raw card or the PAN, P-A-N, the personal account number, which is how you'll see it referred to in a lot of the PCI documentation. So again, intercept that data, secure it, and then allow it to be provided to the back-end merchant system. And as I mentioned, that solution is already pre-integrated with the CMBS solution, which Gerald just demonstrated for us. All right. So the benefits, I've talked about some of these already, but let's just go through these points here. It's a seamless process. To the end user, it does not appear like a pop-up screen. It's not a redirect to another page. You won't see a Paymetric URL. It's embedded directly in the page and looks and feels like the rest of the page. So it's a very seamless process to integrate it and for your end users to use. The benefit to you specifically is you're going to reduce the risk of a data security breach by immediately outsourcing the storage of the sensitive data to Paymetric. You're not being exposed to that at any point, and you don't have to handle the raw card and pass it to Paymetric to be tokenized at any point. We also provide logging for PCI audit purposes, so if you ever do need to have the audit logs provided back to you, we can do that. We're going to help more tightly because that encrypted data that is being stored in relation to the token is in a Paymetric data vault. You can restrict which of your end users would have access to that information, and we can restrict access to that at a user level. That prevents you from having to store any of that sensitive data at any point in time, and will help you, as I mentioned earlier, with your compliance efforts for PCI DSS. We can help grant your organization safe harbor from new data breach notification laws by implementing this functionality. And perhaps the biggest benefit to you is increased security and brand protection. Certainly you don't want to be the next company showing up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or on CNN stating that you've experienced a data breach, you've had several million customers' account numbers exposed to potential hackers or to that breach. And now that is going to be all that's talked about on the financial section for the next several days, as your brand and your company name is dragged through the mud as having experienced a breach. By storing only tokens in your system, if your system is breached, whether it's by an outsider or by a disgruntled internal employee, all that they will have access to are the tokens. Those tokens merely represent a link to the Paymetric data vault where the encrypted credit card number is stored. That token itself, although it does contain the last 4 digits of the card, it does not contain a value that can be reverse engineered into the credit card number. So simply downloading your database with those tokens provides a disgruntled employee or a hacker no information that could be used to perpetuate fraud with another merchant. with that information. So we're going to help increase the security and brand protection of your company and keep you off the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And benefits of the solution as a whole. As you saw, we can help automate the clearing of open receivables and actually push that off to a customer self-service function so that your customers are able to log in, view real-time their open receivables, and make payments against them, whether that's a full or a partial payment. And that, in turn, will help reduce the overhead that you internally have in managing those open receivables manually. You did see it was a real-time integration with SAP. Your customer, when they log on, are able to pull immediately what open items they have on their customer account at that exact moment. And as they make payments, you'll see that those items fall off the list as well, real-time. By giving your customers this functionality in a self-service option, it's easier for them to make those payments, to just look up what's due, plan for making a payment. It doesn't take any time away from any of your internal customer service representatives. And then finally, the pre-integration with the data Intercept for ECommerce solution helps reduce the cost and scope that your company will certainly bear in a PCI DSS audit, and whether that's an annual thing or a quarterly procedure that you must go through depending on what type of merchants and how many transactions you're processing, where you qualify. There will be a cost savings because you can now start eliminating certain systems from scope by not exposing them to the raw card information. Next slide. All right. So I think that gets us to the end of our slide deck. And some of you have asked questions already, I see, in the chat section. If you do have questions, please go ahead and continue to send those in. I'll start going through those in just a second. As you can see on this slide here, we do have contact information for both myself and for Gerald. So if you would like to contact us afterwards, there's our email addresses. So let me just start going through the list of questions here. It says, will this work without tokenization and just encryption? Gerald, I'll let you take the first pass at that. So would your solution work with just an encryption solution and without tokenization?
So Rick, we of course all that will be available to be exposed via the web portal as well. And for us, it's just a matter of configuration, so all that is predefined. There is no separate coding we need to do. It's all a predefined interface with Paymetric, and so tightly integrated, and we just, via configuration, enable the different payment types you want to have for your online platform.
And just as a follow-up to that, typically we do see that pretty much every customer that implements a solution like this will implement the acceptance of credit cards. Some subset of that customer base will implement acceptance of debit cards, and that would be a debit card where a PIN is not required. And then we do see a smaller subset implement electronic check processing. As Gerald mentioned, so long as you've got that method of payment configured within your SAP system, it can be exposed into the online bill system as well. All right, does the store front end need to be SAP, or can you also integrate with another shop solution like Magento? Gerald, I'll pass that to you again.
Well, we focus on the SAP platform. So SAP is what we know, where we're experts in, where we come from, and so we focus with Paymetric on SAP solutions and to integrate the SAP customers on that part.
All right, thank you. Next question was what methods of payment will be supported. I think we've just answered that. Credit cards, debit cards that don't require a PIN, electronic check, basically anything you can configure in SAP. Can credit cards used in the checkout be stored back in SAP for later reuse by the customer? So, Gerald, can you store a card on file and manage that?
Yes, definitely. But we won't store the card. We store the token, and the token contains in the last four characters the characters of the credit card. And then, as you saw during the presentation, the customer can see a list of previously used credit cards or stored credit cards. So they can either save them or every time put in the credit card information themselves. But important again is via the DI of Paymetric and via the tokenization, we only store the token on your customer master and never the raw credit card information. So that the PCI compliant aspect is intact.
Very good distinction. Thank you for making that. Just one last piece I'd add on there. As Gerald mentions, when you store that card information on the customer master record in SAP, that's just storing that information, the token and the expiration date and the card type and the cardholder name within standard SAP tables. So SAP already provides that functionality. This solution just leverages the ability for a customer to maintain it online and then store it in the appropriate standard SAP tables. All right. Is it possible to limit the items the customer sees on their account? For example, can we suppress credit memos?
Definitely, yes, for that. We have a little IMG configuration part around the WebAR solution where you can configure the document type that should be exposed to the WebAR solution. So it's up to you what financial document types you want to show. Some customers want to just show non-partial payments, only regular invoices, or you might have some internal invoices that you want to filter out. That's definitely possible. And then, of course, you can set up as well what fields for those document types you want to present on the web and what reason codes for the partial payments, if that's an option you want to activate via configuration.
Excellent, thank you. And next question, what interface mechanism is used to communicate with SAP? So I'm going to take that as a question, Gerald, of what method of communication do you use between the web front end and the back end SAP?
So the web front end uses SAP's NetWeaver technology. So everything you saw with Vera Bradley runs out of your ECC environment. So we don't have an external call. We only have internal calls via RFCs and PAPIs, and we call the Paymetric PAPI environment to process all the clearing of the R documents. So that's why it's real-time PAPI calls within SAP. It never leaves your SAP system.
All right, very good. Next question is, where is the token itself stored in SAP? So we went over that a little bit, but let me just restate it. SAP has many tables in which credit card numbers are stored, There's a couple specifically for storing that on the customer master. They have a table for storing credit card information in relation to sales orders and invoices, and then also a table where credit card information stored on accounting documents are located. The token will replace the raw credit card number in any and all of those tables if they're used. So if you store a card on file for a customer, as we mentioned earlier, the token is stored in place of the credit card number there. If that card is then used to clear off an invoice, when that happens, that token replaces the storage of the raw card in the financial tables. So several different tables. Basically, it's anywhere in SAP where the CCNUM field is used. We replace the token, we replace the raw card rather with the token in those tables. All right, question, Gerald, can you show what happens in SAP when the payment is processed and how the invoice is cleared in SAP? I don't know if you're able to jump back into the demo system and show the clearing document that's posted in SAP.
Yeah, we can probably go through it, Eric, if you can just explain from the Paymetric side what happens. I can explain what happens on our side. Of course, as I showed briefly, a payment document is created that creates the proper entries on the credit card account and then on the customer account in AR, and this contains then the credit authorization number and the credit card token and all that stuff, and is then ready for the settlement process that is set up with the Paymetric tool. Eric, if you want to explain that part.
Sure. Whenever a payment is posted with WebAR, it's using the same functionality. If any of you are familiar with Paymetric's OpenAR or AutoAR or DirectAR features, we leverage the same SAP function modules to post the payment when an approval on a credit card or an electronic check is received. So if you send out a request to authorize a card for $100, and that's the amount of the open item that was selected, if that card is approved or that amount is approved, we call a transaction inside of SAP some function modules that eventually call transaction FB05, and that's used to post an incoming payment, and the postings that result are that the customer open item is credited for $100, and if it's a Visa card, we would credit your Visa MasterCard receivable account. So effectively, the posting results in shifting the liability off the customer into a credit card receivable GL account, and that's the account that SAP's settlement program reads from. And that account would include any transactions processed through this OpenAR clearing, or this online bill presentment and payment feature. Or if you were using credit cards on sales order entry, all of that would be accumulated into this same GL account and processed for settlement at the end of the night. So the result is that when the payment is approved, the customer liability is immediately relieved, but it needs to remain a liability somewhere in the system because you've not even requested the deposit yet. We just leverage SAP's standard approach of a credit card receivable GL account. All right, next question says, what version of SAP do you need to be on to use this solution? Gerald?
So from our side, it's 4.7 plus. So I think, Eric, if you want to mention what for the OpenAR, what version that needs to be on your side, but we don't have any limitations from 4.7 on.
We can actually run our tokenization and payment solution on any version 4.6c and above. The more and more we're seeing customers either on 4.7 or ECC6. For 4.7 specifically, because SAP made some changes to some of their structures that store credit card information, you would need to ensure that you're on support package 22 or higher. If you're on ECC6, all of those changes were already included, so we don't have a support package requirement with ECC6. All right. How does the portal see the SAP OpenAR items? Is there a nightly extractor program that feeds the data to the portal? So I would add to the end of that question, Gerald, or is it a real-time extraction of that open item information.
Yeah, I think we talked already briefly about that, but I want to just point it out again because this is the truly exciting part for the people on this webinar here. Everything you saw was real-time out of SAP. There is no nightly extractor. There is no download of information. There is no mismatch that the customer can see. It comes out of your AR system. It shows it in real time. They see the same information if they would pick up, in case you have live chat integration from that screen, with your AR people. The customer sees the same information than your internal people in SAP, and you don't need to watch any synchronization queues or anything, or have any failures with pushing data out or synchronizing data from a third-party solution. So this runs directly out of your SAP, real-time calls. That's why the setup is pretty quickly for this. We run everything out of your SAP system.
And let me just stress one other thing in addition to that, and I've meant to stress this a couple times already. This functionality works specifically with the FI AR ledger only in the financials module. This will not process any open items in the FICA contracts accounting ledger. It is designed only to process FI AR items. All right, a question, how are the invoices and statements made available to DI-ECom for a non-SAP integrated ERP? I think the quick answer to that is that this system is designed only to work with an SAP application.
Well, I think the question here is some companies have external platform to present invoices and statements. So we have a customer called IDEX. They have the same situation. We just integrate those links via web services, and then we can pull up via single sign-on scenarios those invoices and statements that third-party solution provides to their customer already today. So it's web. We can integrate web services. We can integrate scripts. We can integrate any other external content you have available and accessible via the web as well. So that's the beauty of that.
And I guess I should add that DI-ECommerce is specific to a presentation of the credit card fields or the payment card fields on an electronic commerce site. It's not specific to a back-end system. So add Gerald and I's answers together, and that should give you a complete picture. Is SAP integration dependent on the FSCM modules such as Biller Direct? So the quick answer here is that the functions that the bill presentment solution are calling are actually custom-written BAPIs that Paymetric has developed, which in turn call standard SAP functions that are available in the FI module, the financials module. So FSCM, Financial Supply Chain Management, is not a requirement in order for this solution to work. All that you require is the CNBS solution, the web presentation layer, and then that you're running the financials module with the AR ledger in the background. Does this system work with PeopleSoft financials?
We answered that already before. So as mentioned, focus is SAP expertise from our side and SAP platform at this point.
All right, thank you. Does your interface support customers' online payment and ACH payment? If I misunderstand this question, because this seems like an easy answer, please correct me, but so long as the methods of payment that you are configuring are supported by your SAP system and your accounts with your merchant processor, whether that's credit cards or debit cards or ACH, the answer there is yes. Will the system allow for cash in advance payments when no invoice in SAP currently exists?
So what we had those scenarios coming up a couple of times now. So what we can do for that purpose, we can just post a manual finance document with a payment request, and then the credit card information and the payment can be processed through that document, and is on hold basically until the settlement is done, and that would then trigger the release of any open deliveries or open orders that are out there. So yes, short answer for that, yes, there is a process in place that can be implemented.
Very good. Next question is similar to the one we recently had about FSCM. Does the solution integrate with SAP's dispute management? The answer there would be no. Dispute management is part of FSCM. Again, the functionality does not leverage any FSCM functionality. Can a customer see his or her customer statement, including open item status?
Yeah, that's possible. Some of our customers do weekly runs where they archive the PDF statements, and then we pull it from the archives and show that online on the customer accounts via the WebAR solution. Others, we pull it in real time. They have a smart form set up in the finance environment, and we generate in real time via that smart form a PDF. Like I showed in the presentation earlier, I showed an invoice that I pulled out. The same functionality is available for statements with the open item status, of course.
Very good. Is the token number attached to the invoice number or sales order? So initially when an open item is generated in SAP, it's done on a payment term and no credit card information was used. When you apply a payment through this online bill presentment and payment solution, I mentioned earlier that we call transaction FB05 to post a document that clears the customer item and shifts that to the credit card receivable account. On that document, on the posting to put the funds in the credit card receivable account, SAP stores the credit card information, the authorization response details, the token, all of that information on that line item of the accounting document. And specifically, that's stored in the BSEGC, BSEGC table in SAP, and that's eventually where SAP's credit card settlement program will read that information from to submit in the nightly settlement batch run.
I want to just add one more comment there, Eric. Of course, the module we showed today is part of our complete e-commerce solution. So if you would like to choose order handling via the web, then of course we can enable credit card processing for those online orders as well, and then you would have the token and credit card authorization on the sales order and of course on the invoice. But that would then be already a cleared document for your accounting.
Excellent, thank you. So how does the customer log on to our company website and pay their open ARs with a credit card? So what's the authentication and what system is managing the customer account for logon?
So our tool has a little web user management area as well, where you can set up web users, and those web users are linked to your customers. So you can set up our Vera Bradley account 1000, assign an account for that, assign the customer that it's linked to. One web user can have multiple customers assigned to as well, depending on authorizations, and then you would just with the tool send out the link and the authorization information to those people, and they could then use that as a login information for the WebAR. And again, everything is in SAP, so we use SAP's authorization concept, so PFCG and authorization roles, to make sure that it's full restricted what the customer can see, so they only can see that information that's allowed to them within the authorization modules of SAP. Pretty similar to what you have for your current AR people.
Thank you. Next question we've already answered, but let me read it and reiterate. When the customer makes the payment, is there an instant function call into SAP that's going to clear the FI line item? Yes, there is, and it's a real-time call to a custom Paymetric BAPI, which in turn calls standard SAP functions to perform that clearing process. Next question is, where do I go for more information on this, and what's the solution specifically called? Gerald, I'll let you answer that.
Well, on the screen here, there's two contacts, either Eric Bushman or George Lechter. You can just contact myself here, and we'll get in touch with you. The solution is called Paymetric WebAR, and is in partnership developed with Paymetric and CNBS.
All right, thank you. A question about integration not only in ECC but on 4.7. We did mention that that's a possibility earlier. It says, looks to me like an extranet portal utilizing tokenization embedded into the portal web page. Is this more to this solution than what I'm seeing? So yes, there is a presentation layer, which was what Gerald demonstrated, the customer logging on and being able to view the open items and pick which ones to apply payment to. On the back end and beneath the scenes, you also have the web service calls to handle the data intercept. You have the integration from the SAP side to request the authorization through SAP's credit card interface, and then you have the function calls to actually post the financial document to clear the open items. So all of that packaged together.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. And as mentioned before, this is one part of a big solution for e-commerce. So if wanted, there is other transaction monitoring possible, there is online shopping cart possible, there is catalog possible, and all that can be restricted via authorization. And of course, as you have seen with the Vera Bradley or AHI samples, there is style sheet and design definitions possible so that it looks and can be branded to your requirements.
The next question asked if there was a specific transaction in SAP that was being called. Is it F-28 or FB05? It is the function modules that FB05 uses. And I'll let you answer this next one, Gerald. So it's a Canadian-specific question. How do you handle the requirement within Canada for specific data requirements on the receipt, such as the authorization number, the date and timestamp, et cetera?
So we can write logs for that, depending on the customer requirements, and keep those in log tables, in SAP log tables. So we have traces that are pre-configured that we can activate depending on the requirements of the different countries.
Excellent. Question, do you process payments as well, or do you help us connect with our clearinghouse only? So Paymetric is essentially a gateway. We will help connect your SAP system, this bill presentation system, with your processing partner. Paymetric is not an acquirer of transactions. So yes, we only help you connect with your clearinghouse. Are the search features customizable? An example would be to search over multiple payers, or is it a one-to-one relationship? Let me get the first. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. There's definitely flexibility on our side to what is presented on the WebAR part. So the fields can be configured, the search can be configured. We could do even customer hierarchies if it's set up in SAP. So that's from the presentation layer. Eric, I'll let you take it on from the payment clearing layer.
On the payment clearing layer, because we're leveraging that SAP transaction FD05, you are only able to clear payments from a given partner or a given payer at a time. So if you do have multiple payers, it would be in your best interest to just present a single payer's transactions online, because a credit card authorization can be used to only clear a payer's open items at one time. Do electronic checks also create an immediate FI posting, or do the payments batch? Whether it's an electronic check or a credit card type, it will follow the same workflow. So there will be an immediate financial document posted, which shifts the funds off the customer into that credit card receivable account. And when the SAP settlement program runs at night, it will batch those transactions up and send them off to your processor for the deposit request. So it is an immediate FI posting with a subsequent settlement batch submission. Whether it's a credit card or an electronic check, there's usually a 1 to 3 day delay before you actually receive the funds deposit into your account, but they do follow the same workflow. All right. Someone asks, I already have a web portal that presents these to the end customer. How do I get this vendor to use DI-ECOM to pass our ERP the token for processing instead of passing the transaction themselves? If you have another e-commerce solution that you would like to integrate data intercept for e-commerce with, so that your vendor is having their card information tokenized before you receive it, That is something we can do. It's separate from the solution that we've just demoed, but feel free to contact me for more information on how to leverage DI-ECOM with other applications. I think this question will be for you, Gerald. You showed that the customer can view a PDF of the invoice. Does your solution capture the invoice batch job, or would you need another provider for that solution?
So typically there's three scenarios we can do. We can do a real-time call to your form that's set up for invoices, and we do a real-time form call and convert that into PDF in real time and show that. So we just use the message type that you have set up in your SAP environment already. The second one is you run your invoices via batch and use SAP's archiving system and store there the PDFs, and we pull it from there. Or, as mentioned before, there's third-party solutions that we can connect to if you have that already. So the answer is you don't need a third-party solution to do that. There is SAP setup that can be done to leverage that within your existing ECC component.
All right. Next question. We take payment in advance of orders for new customers. Our outside salesman may want to process a credit card prior to an account being set up in SAP. Is there a way to handle these type of payments? I can tell you that in general, if you're using one-time customers in SAP, SAP can support the use of credit cards with a one-time customer from the sales order side. Of course, if you do a one-time customer and then bill that on payment terms, you could display that on this solution as well. It would just be more difficult to identify the open invoice because there wouldn't be a customer number associated with it. All right, can we get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation after the webinar? Yes, this will be posted on the Paymetric website afterwards. So if you can't locate it, feel free to contact me directly and we'll make sure that you receive it, but this will be posted. Question, there was an invoice output shown. Would it be able to pull from output types such as R00 or RD10 that we would generate from billing document output types?
That's exactly what we showed. We connected to RD10, I think, in this case, and pulled the invoice out of SAP in real time.
Very good. How is this solution different from SAP Biller Direct? So the WebAR solution was something that Paymetric developed before SAP had developed Biller Direct. They both can effectively act as an electronic bill presentment and payment solution where it's a customer self-service online portal that they can view their open items and make payments against them. Think of the solution that we're showing you today as Biller Direct Lite. It does not require licensing of the FSCM solution, so there's no additional license fees that you will need to incur from SAP. The downside is that there is no integration into dispute management or any of the rest of the FSCM logic. So both have the ability to accept payments against credit cards and then store that information securely in your FIAR system and reflect those payments. The Biller Direct system is a more feature-rich functionality that is tied into the dispute management module as well. All right, please advise my questions regarding third-party portal integration using DI-ECOM to leverage our existing XI Secure XI Pay infrastructure can be addressed offline. I guess we should address those offline. If you're a current Paymetric customer and you're using XI Pay and XI Secure, you absolutely can leverage this functionality immediately and have this installed to provide this electronic bill presentment and payment functionality. Looks like there's more to this question that we'll address offline. Question here is, how long do you maintain the token data itself? Paymetric's tokens are what you will hear referred to as multi-use tokens, and they are intended to be persisted indefinitely. There is no reference to the expiration date of the card, to the cardholder name. The only piece of data that is used when generating the token is the card number itself. Therefore, it can be maintained indefinitely. Is there an open item and customer call when the customer, let me say this again, if there is an open item and the customer calls in to pay the open invoice, then where would you enter the credit card or ACH information? Currently, we're saving it in the sales order. So in this case, if you would like to use the WebAR solution you saw here today, your customer would log on to the website, and once they've chosen the items to apply payment to, they would enter that information directly in the WebAR solution. Similar functionality exists in some custom Paymetric transactions that would allow your customer service agents to perform that same functionality in SAP with an SAP transaction code. So either way, the solution you saw here today is intended for your customer to use in self-service. If you use PFCG for customer access to the WebAR, how does this work with SAP licensing? I apologize, I'm unfamiliar with the acronym PFCG, so if you could clarify that, that would help, please. Does SAP consider a customer logging in to make a payment as a named user? I'll pass that off to you, Gerald.
No, you need to license on a different level, but those are not named users via SU01.
All right, and it looks like the last question is, can you process multiple currencies in the solution? Gerald, if you want to answer that from your side, and then I'll answer it from the SAP side.
Well, we are integrated into SAP, so what our rule is, whatever you have set up in SAP in your SAP environment, we can present. So our solution does not restrict anything from currency, from sales organizations, from sales office point of view, or from company point of view. So if you have multi-currencies activated in SAP, we can, of course, present those as well.
And from my perspective, all I would add to that is you need to ensure that your payment processing partner also can support the currencies you wish to process payments in. So typically, along with what Gerald said, so long as it's configured in SAP and you have a processing partner to support that currency, it is fine. It will work just fine in this solution. And the last question that we have here is, can you give a general estimate for the amount of time it would take to implement a solution like this?
So, of course, there's a couple of variables on the design and look and feel and what information you want to configure. But let's assume Paymetric is already set up. You use the OpenAR clearing in FI already today, and you just want to extend it to the web. We are talking around a 20-day implementation from our side.
All right, very good. Well, it looks like we're at the end of the hour. We very much appreciate everyone joining us today, and a special thanks, Gerald, to you for the presentation of your solution. Very exciting. We've had quite a bit of interest in this and look forward to helping many more of our customers implement this solution. If you do have additional questions, again, feel free to contact either myself or Gerald directly at the email addresses shown. And as I mentioned earlier, this information will be posted on the Paymetric website shortly after this presentation concludes. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.